Welcome to Imagine Otherwise, the podcast about the people and projects bridging art, activism, and academia to build better worlds. Episodes offer in-depth interviews with creators who use culture for social justice and explore the nitty-gritty work of imagining otherwise. I'm your host, Kathy Hanneback.
This is episode 49, and my guest today is Adeline Koh. Adeline is the founder and CEO of Sabbatical Beauty, a skincare company that manufactures Korean beauty-influenced products in small batches. Adeline started Sabbatical Beauty while on her own sabbatical from her tenured position as an associate professor of English at Stockton College, and she eventually left academia to run the company full-time. Sabbatical Beauty was founded with a political, intersectional feminist vision, and we talk quite a lot in the interview about how Adeline rejects the misogynist, and I would add femphobic, assumption that beauty is frivolous, instead viewing it as a form of creativity, self-care, and a way of caring for ourselves that allows us to better care for the people around us. In a former life, Adeline was an associate professor, as I mentioned, as well as the director of the Digital Humanities Center at Stockton College. She's held fellowships at Duke, the University of Pennsylvania, and the National University of Singapore. In our interview, Adeline and I chat about her transition from academic to entrepreneur, how scholars can draw on their training to build careers beyond the academy, particularly important these days given the current academic job market, the challenges and rewards of running a truly intersectional feminist company, and how mentoring future generations helps her imagine and build new worlds. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the founder and CEO of a really fantastic company called Sabbatical Beauty, which you actually created while you were a professor of English. I'd love to hear about the origin story of that. How did you start Sabbatical Beauty and what made you interested in starting a company?
I started Sabbatical Beauty or experimenting with making my own skincare products while I was on sabbatical. That's kind of why it's called Sabbatical Beauty. It was also, the name was given to me by one of my friends, Anne-Marie Perez, who was enjoying some of my products. But I had actually been unhappy in academia for quite a long time. And so I was looking around at things that I could do other than academia, and I tried a number of different things. I did web design, as you know, because I was your web designer for a while. I did a whole bunch of other things. I held webinars and things like that. And when I went on sabbatical, I started fooling around with making my own skincare products because I had gotten addicted to Korean beauty for a few years before that. I really liked the Korean beauty products and what they did for my skin. And I was not really happy with what was available on the market. So after a lot of research, I made up my mind that the only way I could really have products that I could really test whether they worked on my skin was to make them myself. And I really didn't want to make them myself because it was a huge effort and commitment. I had to buy all these different kinds of equipment, like lab equipment and weighing scales and things like that. But my other friends who were really into Korean beauty, especially Dorothy Kim, who is a professor at Vassar, she really encouraged me to make my own product because she also wanted high active ingredient products and she didn't want to make her own. And so she was like, okay, why don't you make them for me? Like, thanks, Dorothy. She's like, oh, your kitchen is so clean. You do such a good job. I'm like, thanks, Dorothy. But it was Dorothy's pushing me into making my own products that got me started. So since I was on sabbatical, I at first I treated it as like a reward for writing. Okay, after I wrote a chunk or something, I would buy my equipment, and then I just got really carried away doing it. I really enjoyed it, and it was very different from academic work because it's working with your hands, and in academic work we don't work with our hands at all. So that was I found it very therapeutic and I enjoyed it. And then I made a product and then my skin looked a lot better. And then my friend said, I want those products like Dorothy wanted a product. So I started selling the products at cost in a little co-op. And then they said to make an online shop for the products. And so then I made an online shop. And then we had a whole bunch of media press features in in Slate, in Allure, in Shape magazine, and it kind of just ballooned from there. And because it was actually turning into something that I could see as viable, I asked for an additional year of leave without pay from Stockton, which they were not very happy about. And during that year, which I am currently finishing out, I resigned. So I resigned as of January 2017, and I just finished my final exit interview last week. So I'm fully quit. I'm doing Sabbatical Beauty full time.
That's quite a shift from academia to running a company, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I never imagined I would be doing that.
So you do quite a bit of mentoring through the company. I mean, you do it in the Facebook group and the community of folks that has grown around it, but you also work with a team. It's not just you. You also work with other folks who help get Sabbatical Beauty products out into the world. Mm-hmm. Why is mentoring so important to you? And do you maybe have a particular approach to it?
Mentoring is important to me because I think it's really important in terms of helping people within the community and giving each other a leg up. Mentoring just came kind of naturally because I was a professor, and that's something that we generally do with our students. And I was a professor at a liberal arts college where we work very closely with undergraduates. So in some ways, like, I felt that it was carrying over from what I had already done. It's also probably something that has made me, I think, in some ways, a less effective employer. And it's something that I'm trying to work on, because mentoring a student is very different from mentoring an employee. Because when you're a professor, the main goal is not really that the student produces fantastic work for your class, but that the student has fantastic learning experience. So it's all about the student's learning experience. But with an employee, it's that you have tangible things that you need to produce. And it's not so much about the employee's learning experience. It's about whether they're doing their job or not. So this is something that I'm still continuing to work on, like, how to be a supportive mentor and boss, but at the same time, how to be an effective boss and manager.
So you've written quite a bit in various publications about how your transition out of academia and into running a company or entrepreneurship required a great deal of soul searching and identity transformation, which all of us who transition out of the academy have to wrestle with in some form or another. Could you share with us a few kind of pearls of wisdom that you've gathered along your journey?
I went into academia. I wanted to become a professor because it was very ironic. My parents actually wanted me to go to business school in my 20s, and I refused because I thought I was a anarchist, intellectual, whatever, political activist, whatever. So I was like, the only life is the life of the mind, and all the things 20-year-olds do. So I refused, and I was like, I'm going to go to graduate school because I want to be all about ideas and I care about ideas. And I think what I didn't realize and what I realize now is there are so many really intelligent, really smart people outside of academia, and that the work outside of academia can also be extremely intellectually challenging and fruitful, and can also mix politics, as you well know. So I think like that was one of my biggest lessons, and it's a lesson that I'm continuing to learn every day. And so one of the things I would probably say to my younger self is that academia is not the only place where smart people live. So I would tell myself maybe not to be so stuck up about the intelligence and the relevance of people who are outside of academia and the industries. It's like, everything is not black and white. It's not like evil capitalists are like, the evil capitalists on Captain Planet, that old cartoon show. It's also cut and dry. And there are a lot of ways in which academia kind of encourages the culture of thinking things are so black and white within and without academia. I would tell myself to probably, I would have told myself to spend more time learning about things outside of academia. and trying to find more respect for them. I mean, I think I still see this within academics, especially from the humanities, which I was from, where then there's this automatic disdain of people in professional positions. Like, for example, the business school, right? Every time I would talk with my department about trying to do something that would make the program more let our graduates look more employable, I would get pushback saying, "Oh, this is something that they do in a business school, and we don't think much of the business school." And I think that's really flawed because we have a lot to learn from each other in terms of different fields, but we have a lot of intellectual snobbery within our silos, and that doesn't help us to learn from one another. I think a little bit more humility in every direction would be helpful, and this is something I would tell my younger self. I probably would not like to hear that. I would not have liked to hear that as well, but that's a lesson that I've learned and continue to learn.
I'm curious about the contrast between your life in academia and your life running a company. What have you found particularly challenging or maybe surprising about running a company that you didn't have to run into in academia?
There have been a lot of changes, but I think the most striking change to me is that I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot happier and I'm a lot more content. I guess because I like academia. When academics work on these very intangible, large projects that go on forever, and there's never a really good system of feedback to tell you whether you're doing a good job or not. And outside of academia, I mean, I have something tangible. I'm like, how are my sales doing? How is my community doing? I have a tangible target that like makes me feel like I accomplished something at the end of the day. And I think what surprised me is that I never knew that I could be so content. I never knew that academia would make me that discontent. And I never knew that stepping outside of it would make me as content as I am now. Other than that, because of the nature of my business, which is a physical product business, my day-to-day, if I'm helping out with production, can be a lot more physical than it normally was as an academic. I'm not sitting in a chair by the computer writing or writing essays. I'm up and about making product and shipping product and labeling product. And so in that sense, it was a lot more physical.
Have you found particular skills or experiences that cut across both of those realms, your academic life and your life at Sabbatical Beauty?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, and I talked about this in this talk that I gave at Digital Pedagogy Lab last week, or the week before. The biggest thing that I found most useful is that I learned how to learn really quickly and effectively as an academic, because that's kind of what humanities academics do. We read a ton of research, we summarize it, we see similarities and trends across the research, we extrapolate from that. And we don't know how useful that is outside of academia, but that really translated into me being able to do what I do with Sabbatical Beauty, because I didn't just learn enough cosmetic chemistry to start making my own products. Like the moment I started realizing that this could be something viable, then I started taking a lot of business development and business strategy courses, online courses, as well as doing a lot of reading around the subject and learning around the subject. And so I learned a lot of things really quickly. And if I hadn't been trained to learn so quickly and effectively, I don't think I could have done what I do currently.
I found the exact same thing when I left academia to run Ideas on Fire. I found that ability to learn a huge amount of brand new skills really, really fast was invaluable.
Right. And I think for people who are outside of academia, they don't quite believe that you can actually learn so quickly. They're very doubtful. They're like, you must have cheated in some way. But it is something that we are trained to do.
So you've mentioned briefly before in our conversation that you created Sabbatical Beauty explicitly as an intersectional feminist company. And you've done a lot of work in the Sabbatical Beauty community, in your various public writings, in the talks that you give, to foreground things like feminist labor politics or the racialization of beauty norms. What gets to count as beautiful and how is that reflective of power relations? I'm curious how you see your work on those issues combining your activist impetus, your creative side, and your academic training.
That's a really good question, because my attempt to realize all of this is really boils down to how I envision the company culture and brand of Sabbatical Beauty. So one major thing, for example, is how Sabbatical Beauty as a brand envisions beauty. So, Sabbatical Beauty isn't trying to sell you product because you should feel inferior or you should feel inadequate for whatever reason because of your skin. It's supposed to be selling you this concept of taking care of yourself so that you can take better care of others around you. It doesn't necessarily need to be about beauty products, even though our beauty products work, but it's more about taking that time for yourself and not thinking that time is selfish, but taking that time for yourself to relax and recharge in order to be able to do the rest of your life better. And it's not that you do self-care alone. That's why I said the Facebook group is so important. So you don't do self-care alone, you do self-care with other people. That's why we do a lot of online events with one another. We do Sabbatical Beauty parties about once a month where we all get together online and consume our favorite beverages and mask together and talk about silly things online, and people can win prizes just by talking about, how they're doing during their day. And that just builds a sense of there are other people out there who care about me, who want to have a conversation with me, who don't necessarily need anything from me other than to be myself. So that for me is how I see a radical feminist community, having a community of people who just want to support you and get along rather than compete with you. It's not beauty for the stereotypical heterosexual male gaze. It's beauty because it's about caring for yourself and caring for one another in a community.
What are some of the goals for the future of Sabbatical Beauty? What do you have coming down the road?
Well, I'm honestly trying to figure those things out myself. First of all, I want to grow the company, and by growing the company, I don't just mean in sales, but also in terms of the community of people who take part in the community. A big part of Sabbatical Beauty is its Facebook group, and people who are ardent Sabbatical Beauty fans tell me they get a lot out of the Facebook group because it tries to be a feminist intersectional space where people support one another, people help each other with their everyday lives, and it's not just about beauty. So that community aspect has been a really important thing for my conception of the company. So I'm trying to figure out ways in which I can grow not just the company in terms of sales, but also in terms of the community. And I'm not sure where it's going to end up yet, but that's kind of my goal, to not just see beauty as a thing in of itself, but like as a community building space, and to imagine further intersections is kind of where I want the company to go.
So this brings me to my last question, my favorite question that I get to ask guests, which really gets at the heart of the work that you all do in the world. And that's the question of that world that you're working towards when you create your products, when you step in front of a classroom, when you create the things that you create in the universe. So I'll ask you what might be a scary question, but I think is a good question that we should ask each other more of. What's that world that you're working towards? What kind of world do you want?
That answer really can be exemplified by how I see realizing Sabbatical Beauty and growing Sabbatical Beauty. So I wanted to see, is it possible to have a company that isn't exploitative? Is it possible to have a company where people actually feel happy about coming into work and not alienated by their work? Is it possible to have a company build a community that isn't just profit driven, but it's also driven by by the needs of the community, the emotions of the community, and the care of the community. In a lot of ways, I feel like Sabbatical Beauty is my experiment in trying to put a lot of what I felt very strongly about in academia into practice. It's no way perfect. It's in no way perfect. It's in no way finished, but like just trying and figuring it out, making mistakes and trying again and making more mistakes is my contribution towards like trying to put in my ideal world into practice.
Well, thank you so much for being with us and sharing a little bit about your journey and how you imagine otherwise.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Imagine Otherwise. Imagine Otherwise is produced by Ideas on Fire, and this episode was created by Christopher Prasad, Michelle Velasquez-Potts, Alexander Sastre, and myself, Kathy Hanneback. You can check out the show notes for this episode on our website at ideasonfire.net, where you can also read about the fabulous guest, as well as find links to the people and projects we discussed on the show.